Now that we know that God is the good physician who only performs painful operations because he knows that it will lead to our spiritual health, there's another aspect of God we must consider. Not only is God skilled in doing the correct thing for his children because he knows that it will produce things that we so often don't even desire for ourselves, the better things, the loftier things, the transcendent things. Not only is God skilled in helping us to be healed of our sinful ways, our aberrant thinking, because he wants to heal us and conform us into the image of his Son, we need to understand his motive. God loves his children. Now that maybe makes you go, oh, because you perhaps are a Lutheran, and the whole lovey-dovey thing kind of hits you kind of funny. Or maybe it's because culturally that's just not the way you grew up with a lot of the love language, and let's just lighten up on the God loves me business. Or maybe it's because you are so weary of hearing so many preachers just talking about God's love as if it's this sentimental glop that he just ladles on his kids. Ooh, I just love my kids, and ooh, the kids are just so amazing, and God just, ooh, he sings over me, and he's just loving me because I'm so lovable. And you hear somebody say, God loves his children, and you go, oh, haven't we had enough of that? And the answer to that question is no. We don't have enough of that. We need to remember that, because as God goes about his business, skillfully operating, it's not on a stranger, it is on his own child. And he only performs the procedure because he cares for us. Why is it crucial we remember this? First of all, it's biblical. Second of all, it will take us through the difficult operation. Look, God is willing to give us squeezes that are pretty intense. God is willing to even permit really bad things to happen to us, sometimes to even cause calamities, because we need those things. And as we go through the pressure cooker, if we don't keep our eyes on our loving physician, we might grow a little bit bitter. For whatever reason you have for not wanting to hear about the love of God, well, too bad. You're going to hear about it anyway, which is a reminder. The Puritans, they preached fiery sermons. There's no question about that. But we overlook the vast majority of their preaching when we overlook their preaching on the love of God. Be careful that in response to all of the lovey-dovey, sentimental glop preaching that we hear, that you forget about the tender love of God. The Puritans most certainly did not. Thomas Watson wrote this: "The grand reason why all things work for good is the near and dear interest which God has is in his people. To be certain, it's for his glory, but it's for our good." And please note, God is not responding to the operation and going, "Oh, Feeks, my child was cut open by a stranger. I guess now that I know about it, I'll work on healing it, for his good. I'll make good out of a bad situation." God is the surgeon with the scalpel. God doesn't make good things happen out of bad and painful circumstances. Those circumstances are good. Surgery is good. Does it hurt? Yes. Do you need to recover? Of course you do. Does it maybe even appear to set you back so you can make forward progress? Yes. But the surgery itself is good. Not just the healing, but the actual event that brings about the healing is good. Ditto with God's acting on you. If it is hard, if it is painful, God is not going to get a text informing him that you're going through a difficult time. No. He ordained the difficult time. He ordained it. God doesn't do sin, but he uses sin sinlessly. Will God cause a calamity like a storm? or the stock market to drop and you to lose your fortune because he knows that you have been turning money into an idol and you need to turn your eyes to him and trust him more than you do your bank account, yes, he will. And that in and of itself is good. Why? Because it comes from the good physician who loves you. More from Thomas Watson. God entirely loves his people. He engraves them upon the palms of his hands. He sets them as a seal upon his breast. He will give kingdoms for their ransom. This shows how near they lie to his heart. If he be a husband whose heart is full of love, then he will seek the good of his spouse. Either he will shield off an injury or will turn it to the best. Why? Because God loves you. Can you take one more quote from a dead guy? Watson wrote, "He is faithful in his love. He gave his very heart to us when he gave the Son out of his bosom." Here was a pattern of love without a parallel. He is faithful in his promises. How do we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that God loves us? Look at the cross. He sent his Son to die for us because, you know the verse, God so loved the world.